Hi, welcome to Dollars and Senseless. I'm Adam Smith. You might wonder why I wanted to start a podcast about telling stories about personal financial journeys. I feel it's important that the voices of real people from all walks of life have a place to share their financial ups and downs. As we go through these stories, I'll share my own ride as a full-time employee and an entrepreneur, just trying to provide for my family. I'll discuss my triumphs and frustrations, as many as I'm sure many of you will have or have had. I'm not an expert in finance, just a person sharing my experiences and allowing others to do that also. No one path is the same, but you never know when you might connect with someone else's experience. So I hope that these stories resonate with you and push you further into shaping the financial life you want to lead. Whether you're looking to conquer debt, invest wisely, or simply make more sense of your sense, this podcast is your guide. Today's guest is Tim Yu. Tim comes from a military background and has used that experience to shape his venture in real estate. Tim is an investor and uses many strategies to find and buy properties. He's active on social media, developing content to help others take action to start their own real estate careers. He also uses his own calls as teaching tools for young and hungry investors and wholesalers. I'm sure Tim has more to say, so thanks for coming on Dollars and Senseless, Tim.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I appreciate the invite onto the podcast, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great to get you on here. We started to connect through Pace Morby and the stuff that you're doing in the sub 2 community. But I'll kind of let you just start off, to kind of just talk about your background. How did you get started? Where are you coming from?
Yeah, so I'm from all over the place, like kind of what Adam said. Like I'm a military guy, so I've been all over the U.S. here. We're both located in Louisville, Kentucky, which is awesome. It's always great to connect with somebody in your local community. But yeah, so I have a full-time job, W-2. I'm an Army officer here at Fort Knox, Kentucky. And I started my real estate journey in November 2022. So it's almost my 1-year anniversary for investing in real estate. And I'll tell you, it's been such a wild ride, and it's been so much fun connecting with people and learning about the industry. How I kind of started with real estate has been crazy, right? So a lot of people say, man, Tim, how do you make that 50-minute drive every day from Louisville, Kentucky to Fort Knox? And I tell them, that drive actually is the thing that really changed my life. Because not to be like corny or cheesy, but a lot of real estate investors know what bigger pockets is, right? And in those 50-minute drives back and forth, I listened to, Tony Robinson's and Ashley's Bigger Pockets Rookie podcast, right? So that's what I listen to every single day.
Yeah.
And it kind of it got to a point where I listened to that podcast for about a year, and I was like, what am I doing? I need to go get a deal. And so I kind of started thinking and churning my head about, what type of real estate I should do and how I should get into it. And obviously one of the podcasts was a creative finance podcast. And, Pace Morby was on there. And I was like, man, let me check out his mentorship, right? Didn't really know anything about real estate yet. And I was like, man, I talked to, his enrollment officer, and I wasn't ready at the time. Wasn't ready to pay money for a mentorship and I wasn't sure if it was legit, to be honest, right? Like everyone thinks like all these mentors are scams. So I kind of waited. I was like, let me get a couple of deals first and let's see how it goes. All right. So in the real estate journey, I remember it was like Thanksgiving, right? It was Thanksgiving. I'm walking in a park with my girlfriend at the time, but now my fiance. So it worked out.
Nice.
And she's yelling at me because I'm on my phone. Like we're outside walking, and she's like, dude, get off your phone. You're on it all the time. And I was actually on Zillow. I was creeping on Zillow, and I saw a property go from $100,000 to $50,000 overnight.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, man, this is weird. And I looked at the pictures, and it looked good. So I called my agent. I was like, can we go see it like as soon as Thanksgiving's over? She's like, yeah, let's go check it out. we go there, we find out that there was a squatter that broke into the property. And I was like, listen, I will buy this property $40,000 cash. I'm going to do it. And the guy was like, yeah, my seller doesn't care. Like, he wants to get rid of this. So we got rid of the squatter, cash for keys. And then we did the renovations on the project. But it was $40,000 purchase, $30,000 reno. So it was all in for $70,000. And it ended up appraising for 118. So it was a pretty good spread. But I obviously did not make that much money, and I'll kind of get into that story later. I wanted to originally burn the property, so I wanted to buy it, rent it, or renovate, rent it, and then refinance and keep it as a long-term rental. But there was some issues with the contractor. I was inexperienced. The project took about 4 months. It was only supposed to be a 30-day reno, and there's a drug bust across the street. And I said, well, I'm going to sell it. So we ended up listing it on the market, and it sat there for like 30, 40 days. And then I ended up barely making $10,000, which is great. Like, for my first flip, I still made money, but definitely not the $40,000 I was going to make. But, I learned a lot. I had to paint my own house because my contractor disappeared on me.
Oh.
And yeah, dude, it was a disaster, but I definitely learned about, don't skimp out on contractors. Don't pay the extra money for a reputable, well-known contractor to get your deal done. Don't try to save that $300. But yeah, I was gonna quit real estate after that. I was gonna quit. I was like, man, this is not for me. Like, it took 4 months to make $10,000, and it was a lot of like heartache and stress. And somebody told me, in the real estate community, was like, dude, that was a win. Okay. He's like, you didn't lose money. You learned a lot. It was the most expensive lesson of your life. So I was like, yeah. All right. So I'm going to keep buying houses.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about it, you started talking about bigger pockets, just listening to the podcast, and then you're like, I got to take action. You took action, you decided to make it, and it didn't necessarily turn out what you thought. But like you said, I think the biggest thing is that there are so many lessons of just taking action that now I'm sure it's just got you spurred to go, okay, I'm going to do the next deal. And I know that I don't need to look for, the cheapest contractor. If I'm going to do this property, I'm going to find a good contractor, and just know that it's just part of the cost of doing business.
It is. It's a part of the cost. It's a part of the, it's part of the process, right? But yeah, so then after that, I used that money, and I paid into a mentorship. So I used I used the profits entirely, and I rolled it into the mentorship I'm in now. And but yeah, and then the last year, I think last week, was it 2 weeks ago now? 2 weeks ago, I closed on my 10th property this year.
Wow.
So we've been doing some crazy business, and we can talk about that later. But in terms of like financial education stuff, I was originally, my family is both immigrants. They came here from China like 20, 30 years ago, and they have no financial literacy at all, where they had all their money in a checking account for the last 20 years. So it's been crazy. And I actually finally got them signed up for a high yield savings account. So now they're making 5% interest instead of less than 1%. So that's great. But, baby steps, right?
Exactly.
Basically, if my parents just put it in a stock market, we'd be millionaires. But, they kept it in a checking account. So, and I think that's really important to say, because your ability to grow money or invest money is really from like the people you meet throughout your life, or from the networks you're around, or the circles you're in. Because my family obviously wasn't in those circles where they're in the money making business, right? They worked in government jobs for 20, 30 years, and they retired, and they lived very comfortably with their pensions, but they retired at like 60. And that's just not the way I was kind of built. But luckily, my sister ended up marrying a very financial savvy dude who told me when I was 11 years old, when they first started dating, hey, if you're mowing lawns and you make $50, you're going to take half that $50 and put it into a stock account. And then you're going to keep the $25 to do what you want. And I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds good. And he showed me how to do it. And so I've always been invested in stocks. That's always been my foundation throughout the years. And that's just because that one guy came into my life by accident and he said, dude, don't put this stuff in a checking account. Go put it in a stock account. And I was like, cool, sounds good. So, I did a lot of ETFs. I don't really buy individual companies. I have a Roth IRA still. And then for the Army, there's a 401k equivalent called a TSP. So I did that for the 9 years I've been in the Army. And, we made some money off that. But as I started getting into real estate, I don't suggest this for everybody. I'm not telling you to do what I'm doing. I took the chance and I liquidated my 401k. So I liquidated my 401k and I've been investing in real estate. I've been lending money in real estate transactions because I took a gamble and I said that I can make way more money doing real estate or lending versus letting it sit in a stock market account. Do I still have stocks? Yes. So I still have my 401k. Or no, I still have my Roth IRA. So I have my money in there still invested in stocks and companies and stuff like that. So, I'm a believer of having multiple avenues of revenue. So, when I'm 65, maybe I'll have a couple $100,000 of tax-free money in there. I'm good with that, right? Maybe I just live off that. And then obviously you'll have the real estate portfolio, right? The appreciation, the wealth acquisitions. And then also, when I'm older, I'm not going to flip houses anymore. I'm not going to wholesale because I'm going to get tired of it. But at that point,
well, come on, you want to continue to do that.
I don't know, man. I don't know. It's fun now, but I know when I'm 40 years old, I'm not going to try to flip any more houses, right? So the goal is from now to then is to have that active real estate money, like the wholesale, the flipping, where to supplement my W-2. So my goal is to eventually leave the Army and supplement my income with the flipping and the lending and all that stuff while purchasing creative finance deals that I'm going to hold forever. Yeah. So you got to have that balance, right? So then when one day I decide to stop actively investing and actively doing these real estate deals, that I'll have enough cash flow and appreciation for me to retire.
Yeah.
But that's like my goal.
It's just amazing to sit there and listen to your story. And, you're talking about, your parents coming in as immigrants, putting their money in a checking account, and just letting it sit there for a while. But I'm sure that they were looking at their expenses and they were just continuing to put money away, and they were saving, not necessarily in the same way that you're now doing it, but they were saving. So it sounded like, at least from the very beginning, you had that kind of saver's mentality. And then you had a guy show up in your life and say, okay, let's take it to the next level. And so it sounds like you've continued to use that as you've gone through your life of, okay, I've done this one thing. I've gotten this piece of information. Okay, what's the next piece of information? And so going to the stock market, now going to real estate. And I know we were talking kind of offline, you're continuing to have these conversations with different people, and they're just giving you even more of those pieces of going, here's all the different options. Now, what do I want to do? And so I think that's, it's great for you, as you're sitting there talking, you're in the stock market. You decided to liquidate your 401k, which, some people are like, I'm sure they're probably listening. They're going, why would this guy do this? But in some cases, like you said, you knew that money, yes, it's a retirement account, but real estate can be a retirement account. Your other income, if they're passive, can live on through your life and your descendants, your kids, and or others, if you wanted to be in charity or whatever, it can live on once you set that stuff up.
what do you call that? Generational wealth is what they say,
Exactly.
right? So,
Yeah.
a lot of people will probably be like, man, this guy's crazy, right? So let's say, I like to compare stuff by interest rate, or not interest rates, but how much interest you're gaining, and stuff like that, right? So like, let's say like you have a 401k and it's invested in the stock market. I think the average return for the stock market in the last 30 years was like 9 to 10%.
Hmm.
Don't quote me on that, guys, but I'm pretty sure that that's what
It's
the
pretty close to what a lot of people talk about.
right. So that's like the average. So 9 to 10% in
Hmm.
the last 30 years, and that's not counting the time when you go down, go up, whatever it is.
Hmm.
The reason why I said screw it, I'm gonna liquidate it, is because I don't want to see that money at 65. I can't touch that money till I'm 65.
Hmm.
So I'm
Yeah.
like I cannot retire until I'm 65 because I need to wait for that money to open. And what if when I'm 65, the stock market takes a 30% dump that year, right? So let's say
Hmm.
another COVID happens and my stocks drop 30%. I can't retire. I have to wait until that money comes back up, and nobody knows when that's going to happen, right?
Hmm.
So that's why I was like, you know what? I'm going to take this money and I'm going to lend it. So I started lending, and I think in 3 months, I made a 30% return on one deal, which is like 120% year over year return,
Hmm.
which is a 12x against the stock market. Now, is there risks to that? Yes, right? There's 100% risk to that. But I trust myself to make the best decision on that transaction, and analyze the deal and make sure that it's a good deal. And I'll take a calculated risk, right? But
Yeah.
that's essentially why I liquidated my stuff, because I felt genuinely in my heart that I could make more doing it on my own versus doing a stock market.
You're talking about the lessons that you can learn from you know all the experiences that you have, and you can either choose to let those experiences, when they are not as positive, or they have some real hardship, they hold you back potentially from continuing on, or you can push forward and find the way to use those lessons as you continue to move forward. And that's what I hear from you. And just thinking about, well, I could do this or this or this. You continue to have the kind of squirrel mentality, um, or you can sit there and take a lesson and be like, okay, now let's do this again, but we're gonna mitigate that risk for this next one.
100%. Yep. Yeah, I mean, like, there's always, I think, in the financial education world or investing world, there's always something to learn. Like me and you are part of the same community in terms of like lending money for real estate deals. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there's so many ways to have access to money, like lines of credit, business credit cards, the life insurance stuff that we talked about off camera. Like, there's so many vehicles to make money passively and also leverage what you have going to scale your business or scale your life, right? It's,
Mm-hmm.
and it's, you only learn it through exposure to people that are doing it. So I do recommend people to kind of step out of their shells and to just reach out, right? Talk to people, network, right? And everyone says network. And
Mm-hmm.
I posted a video on Instagram about networking and mentorships, and the reason why I post that is because ever since I started on social media, I have a lot of people that are trying to start in real estate reach out to me and say, "Yo, let me buy you a coffee. Let me take you out to lunch, and let me pick your brain." And when you talk to them, they don't even know what they want to do. Like, they want to get into real estate, but they've never actually thought about it, and they never figured out what they wanted to do. Like, I wanted to do a BRRRR, right? I wanted long-term rental at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Things can change. Like, now, I don't want any rentals right now. I want to keep flipping. But things change. But you need to have a plan of some sort, so then someone can actually, you can find the right mentor. Like, if you want to do fix and flips, go find someone that fix and flips, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you don't know what you don't know, you're kind of wasting our time, right? Like, you're busy, right? I'm guessing you're busy. You have a wife
Yeah.
and kid, you have a job. you're an entrepreneur. Like, you don't have time to sit down and have an hour coffee with every single person that wants to learn real estate.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you just don't. And we take time out of our day to talk to you, and you don't even know what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I ask people, when you're going to call someone and ask them to be a mentor, figure out what you can bring to the table. Like, how I started, like, I took a shot and I found a real estate agent that I trusted, and we went to go get that deal, right? Like, I didn't say, like, be my mentor, right? Because I mean,
Yeah.
essentially what I brought value to was I brought money. I got her paid,
Mm-hmm.
right? I
Yeah.
got the agent paid. And in return, she gave me her expertise, right? Like, I pay her, right, when we buy or sell a house. And me and her, we've bought 6 properties together. So I mean, she's made some money off me, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I love my agent to death. But that's the relationship, though, right? Like, how did I become her number one client? We did a lot of deals together. If I wasn't doing deals with her, do you think she would send me stuff? Do you think she would reach out to me and be like, yo, check out this house? No, that's not how this works, right? It's what value you can bring to somebody. And I know tons of people that, like, they don't have money, they don't have experience, but they have time and they have, motivation.
Mm-hmm.
Be a cold caller. We know so many investors in sub two that started off as cold callers because they don't have money and they don't have experience. So they get on the phone 2 or 3 hours a day and they call people all day.
That's their value.
That's their
It's a
value,
couple hours.
right? People don't
Yeah.
understand or don't think about that. It's like, I talked to an investor out here locally. He said, hey, I want to get started and all this stuff, and I don't really know what to do. I said, hey, do you want to be a cold caller for us? I said, I'll train you and do all this stuff. And that's when I decided, when I texted you back the other day, I was like, man, I'm not going to hire anybody anymore,
Mm-hmm.
because the guys that I've talked to are like, yeah, I want to do it. And then I'm like, okay, how much time you got? And then they're like, oh, I don't have time to call because I'm doing XYZ. And you know me, man, I'm very honest with people. I told them, like, well, it sounds like to me that you're not motivated to do this.
Oh,
And
and it's really you're talking about it. There's a difference between trying to find what you want to do and trying to find someone to help you take your idea, your business to the next level. There's a difference between asking the community a question or going out to YouTube and trying to find stuff, or Instagram, or wherever you find your education, and then actually looking for a mentor. And a mentor is going to, it's not just about picking their brain. It's about providing value to them, because they need, they got something to do. You, like you said, you're busy. You've got things that you need to do, and you can help people along the way, but they've got to help themselves. And if they're just asking for free advice, I mean, there's a ton of free advice. I mean, that's why we're on social media. That's why we put things out there. That's why Pace is out there. That's why, all these different individuals are out there putting out free content. But to actually be a part of what they do, you've got to provide value. You've got to be part of the community. You've got to be active in that community. And I
mhm,
think that's really what you're seeing right now, is really people thinking that a mentorship is advice, and those two things are different things.
100%. 100%, man. Mentorship takes a lot of time, man. It takes a lot of time
Mm-hmm.
and dedication to make sure that you're going to get to that next level. And I'm not about the mentorships, because, like, for me to do a mentorship, because I don't, like I said, like, I don't think that's, like, for me. Like, I don't have the patience, I don't have the time
Mm-hmm.
to do it, I don't have the resources to do it, and I don't have the experience. So, I know some people do, right? That they have the mentorships, they have the communities, and all power to them. Um, it's too much, it's too crazy for me, and I would feel bad too, right? Like, if you paid me money,
Mm-hmm.
and even if it was the person's fault of not taking any action, I would feel bad that I took their money and they couldn't get a deal.
No.
I would just feel bad, dude. I'm like, I'm sorry, dude.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I took your money.
Well, you talked about, a lot of things that you're doing, all the different, where you came from and what you're trying to accomplish. What are kind of your top, two or three things that you do when it comes to managing your own finance? I know you kind of talked a little bit about it, but kind of what are your kind of your basics that you go to?
Yeah, the basics, man. Pay off. Okay, so if I use a credit card, actually, I don't use a debit card. So I have a debit card, I just don't use it. But
Mhm.
every single bill I pay, gas, groceries, AT&T, Spectrum, whatever it is, I pay with a credit card. In my mindset is that money has to leave my bank account anyway, right? So the groceries I buy, the gas I buy, it has to leave my checking account. So if I use a credit card that gives me 1.5 cash back or points, whatever it is, why not use your credit card? Because you're going to pay it off
Mhm.
anyway, right?
Yeah.
And
So.
you get paid to use your credit cards if you pay off your bill. If you pay off your bill every month, you're going to
Mhm.
get paid to use your credit card by rewards.
Yep.
That leads to the second thing, right? Number two is anything that's high yield debt. So like credit cards are like 15 to 25% interest. Pay that stuff off every month. Pay that off. If it's like for me, if it's under 5% interest, I'll keep it. I'll keep it long term,
Mhm.
maybe 6% because of the mortgage rates right now. But anything that's over 6%, I'm paying that off because the same conversation we had earlier about interest, how much you're losing, how much you're gaining. Well, gaining,
Mhm.
losing, right? So if the stock market goes up 9% that year and I have debt that's over 9%, I'm still losing money.
Exactly. It's that
So,
spread.
right? So if I have a car payment, so my car note, I bought it at the best time, it was like 1.9% interest. I took the longest loan possible. Now Dave Ramsey and all these people will say, "Oh, pay it cash." Well, to me, if I were to pay a car $30,000 cash, that's $30,000 I can't use to invest,
Mhm.
right? So I took the longest loan available, so it was like 5, 6 years. I don't care about the interest. I don't care
Mhm.
that I'm paying $50,000 in interest because I'm making $300,000 over that 6 years by investing the money that I didn't spend on the car. So if my interest is 1.9%, but I use that extra $30,000 and I made 17%, 30%, or even 10% in the stock market, I'm net 8%,
Yep.
right? So I live my life by interest rates. Does my debt, what's my debt interest and what I'm making in my investments, right?
Yeah.
You can do interest rates and percentages with everything you do. So in real estate, what do you use? You use a cash on cash return, right? That percent of the amount of cash you put in and how much money you're making positive, right? So like what people say, like 10 to 15% cash on cash is a great investment. Why do they say that? Because you got to beat the stock market.
Mhm.
Because if you're not beating the stock market, why are you even doing it? Because you can just park it into a stock account and not worry about it and let it ride up and down, up and down. So I think that's how I live my life. And then the third thing, I don't know if I probably covered it. The third thing is kind of, dude, think about ways to make you money while you sleep.
Mhm.
That's what keeps me up at night, right? This is what I think about.
Well, then how is it making you money when you're sleeping if you're up?
I know, man, it's crazy. It's like
I understand.
I'm in a conundrum, man. But like, what I think about almost every day is how can I make more money while I'm sleeping? And that's real estate, through stocks, um, you know, credit building, stuff like that. Like, who doesn't want to make money doing nothing?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but it takes a journey to get to that point where you're making enough money while you sleep to do what you want, right?
Now, everything that I heard, between, paying your credit card off every month, putting all your expenses, but knowing that you're going to pay that off every month. So you know what your income is, You know what your expenses are. You make sure that you can cover those expenses. That's what you do. Pay off, the high interest debt. But if it's low interest, maybe keep it. And then how do you do it passive? It's all about thinking about why you're doing something. Why are you gonna get that credit card? Why are you going to pay money for a cell phone bill? Why are you, some people think about, well, I'm going to go, finance my vacation on a credit card, but why are you doing that? And so everything that you talked about is all about just thinking about why you're doing it. It doesn't make sense for you so that you don't put yourself in a financial bind. And then the very last thing is, as you're thinking about it, is now how do I expand once I've got those basics? How do I expand and make it so I don't have to think about certain things?
Yep. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And like I said, like there's a lot of financial gurus or financial people that will tell you different things. And you kind of just have to find the strategies that kind of work for you. Like for me, you know, I live or die by interest rates, right? So it's like that's just how I think, and that's just how it's how I was kind of raised. And I love debt, and I know friends and family that actually hate debt. Like one of my good
Mm-hmm.
friends, he has no debt, no student loans, no car payment, no anything, and he bought a house last year. And he was like, "Man, it just kills me that I have to pay this mortgage and I have like this debt." And I'm like, "Dude, what? I'm like, what do you mean?" I was like, "It's a mortgage." He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "I just don't like having debt." I'm like, "What are you, Dave Ramsey? Like, or like, how do you make money? Is
Mm-hmm.
there debt, right?" Unfortunately, like it depends. Like there's good and bad debt, right? And there's a whole debate about
Yeah,
what's good, what's bad. But I will tell you what bad debt is: 25% interest credit cards
that's
that you
bad
don't
debt.
plan on
Yeah.
paying for, right? Now, if you used it for responsible things, it's great debt because you're getting
Mm-hmm.
rewarded by using a credit card. But yeah, like your story, like financing a vacation on a credit card, dude. Absolutely not. I mean, obviously, you're going to use a credit card when you go on vacation, but if you don't have the money to begin with, don't
Yeah.
finance on a credit card.
Yeah.
Guys, don't do it.
Yeah. Well, Tim, I appreciate you sharing your story and sharing your journey through your parents being immigrants, you being in the army and then getting into the real estate game. I hope to see bigger and better things for you, and take care.
Hey, no, I appreciate it, Adam. I appreciate everything. And yeah, love to stay in touch, man.
All right. Sounds good. Take care.
See ya.